W.E.B. Du Bois once said that there is but one coward on earth, and that is the coward that dare not know. And I think everything in us, when we hear dark stories, we recoil, we don't want to hear them. But I think it's courageous to actually remember and to hear the stories of children. I think it's not only courageous, but it's also really honoring. Mother Teresa once said that the worst disease imaginable is not malaria, it's not AIDS, it's the disease of being forgotten. So we remember. I remember being in a safe home one time, and there was a young girl there, maybe 8 years of age, maybe 9, and she was so broken that she would spend her days in the safe home away from the other children. Some of the other children didn't want to be near her because she didn't bathe, she didn't take care of herself. She was so broken, she would sit in a pile of dirt in the back of the safe home, and she would just sit there and take handfuls of dirt and pour the dirt over her head, wanting to disappear into the ground. I can't even fathom that kind of brokenness, especially in a child, that would bring a child to a place of feeling so worthless and so full of shame that she wanted to disappear by covering herself with handfuls of dirt. I remember talking with a criminal investigator who was going into brothels and doing investigations there, and this is a big, tough guy, and I remember his eyes filling up with tears as he was telling me about another individual, a child, who he said when he met her, she was covered with cigarette burns, and told the story of how a particular customer would put his cigarette out on her body. That's a child. I remember a caregiver in a safe home sharing the story of a young girl who had escaped from the brothel, and the brothel managers hiring law enforcement officials to track her down, and the law enforcement officials finding her and duct taping her body and dragging her through the streets, bringing her back to the brothel and participating in beating her to teach her a lesson and the other girls a lesson about you cannot be free, you cannot run away from this place. We had a girl who was in a counseling session with our director of aftercare, who told the story of a particular customer who she described as a monster. And man, I remember when I was a kid, I had a fear of monsters. Oh, there's a monster under my bed or a monster in my closet. And a lot of us remember those things when we were kids. And the reality was that those monsters were not real for us, they were imaginary. But for so many children in the world, their monsters are very real. And her particular monster was a customer who would, if she didn't do what he wanted her to do, he would punish her by taking her by the hair and wiping the bathroom floor with her hair like she was a mop. So there are countless stories that are dark and that are horrific. But alongside of that, we have just amazing stories of seeing things that I didn't think, honestly, was possible. I didn't think that it was possible to see somebody recover from some of these nightmares. And I remember one girl, the first girl actually that we ever brought into our safe home in Southeast Asia. When she arrived at the safe home, she was asked by a caregiver, what's your hope for the future? Do you have any wish for the future? And this little girl just lit up as she walked through the doors of the safe home, and she said, my wish has already come true. I'm home. I'm finally home, in a safe place. Oftentimes when a child is first brought to a safe home and they're asked what they want to be when they grow up, there's a complete disconnect there. There's no sense of hope for the future. If I survive today, it's a good day. And so a real sign of recovery starting to take place is when a child can dream again about the future. And I love when we visit our home in Southeast Asia, when you hear children say, I want to be a doctor when I grow up, or I want to be a social worker, I want to help other girls who are in the same situation that I was in. And this brightness and this light of hope in a future is so powerful to behold. I remember it was about a year and a half ago, visiting a safe home that we were supporting, and there was a young girl who came up to me, and she's just giggling and sparkly-eyed, and just like a little girl should be, and she was pulling on my shirt and trying to tell me something, and she was speaking in a language that I don't speak or understand, but she was desperate to tell me something, and I brought a caregiver over who could translate, and I asked the caregiver, what is she trying to tell me? And the caregiver said, Rob, she wants to teach you to dance. And I don't dance. My kids say that I flail, so it's not a real pretty thing with me dancing, but when the broken ask you to dance, you dance. And I remember spending this afternoon in this safe home with this little girl teaching me the moves of this traditional dance, and pretty soon all these other kids gathered around, and they were laughing and giggling the way little kids should laugh and giggle, and they're all pointing at the weird, awkward white guy trying to look graceful. And man, what a moment that was. I don't think I ever understood true celebration like I did that afternoon. And a little while later, I asked the caregiver about this young girl. I said, wow, can you tell me her story? She just stole my heart. And the caregiver said, Rob, she said, this is the little girl who just a year ago would sit in that pile of dirt and try to disappear by covering herself with handfuls of dirt. So recovery and restoration is possible. Children are getting their lives back. There is hope.